Yeah, honestly, I've been working really hard to get back to full health, and I feel like probably over these last couple of weeks is when I've probably started feeling my best. Obviously, my ankle kind of.
The moment Caitlin Clark was drafted, the basketball world immediately believed the franchise had been rescued and transformed overnight. Yet almost nobody could have imagined that the most celebrated rookie the sport had ever seen would reportedly already be considering a future away from the team only months into her professional career. Fans quickly began noticing the visible signs of frustration during games, the eye rolls, exhausted reactions, and disconnected body language that hinted something far deeper was unfolding beneath the surface. But according to growing whispers coming from behind closed locker room doors, the real conflict was happening far away from the cameras. Reports and rumors began describing a relationship inside the organization that had completely broken down, escalating into what many now view as one of the most dramatic internal power struggles the league has ever witnessed. What originally appeared to be the perfect basketball fairy tale, a generational superstar arriving to lift a struggling franchise toward championship relevance, allegedly spiraled into a toxic atmosphere filled with clashing personalities, accusations of unfair treatment, and a coaching staff that seemed entirely unprepared to handle the overwhelming spotlight attached to the phenomenon they had inherited. While fans expected the normal challenges that come with a rookie adjusting to professional basketball, few anticipated open tension between a superstar player and the very people responsible for guiding her development. Now, with the pressure reportedly reaching a breaking point, rumors suggest that a powerful ultimatum may have already been delivered directly to the front office, forcing the organization into a crisis few could have predicted this early in her career. To truly understand how the situation escalated so dramatically and so quickly, however, you have to go back to the very beginning, to the first moment Clark stepped onto the professional hardwood wearing an Indiana Fever jersey. Indiana was supposed to represent the ideal environment for a Midwest basketball prodigy to evolve naturally into the next iconic face of the professional game. Yet the reality reportedly hit with shocking force, exposing what critics describe as deep organizational problems that sold-out crowds and record-breaking attention could no longer hide. The excitement surrounding Clark's arrival reached a level the league had never experienced before, bringing unprecedented television exposure, increased commercial attention, charter flights, and worldwide scrutiny unlike anything the WNBA had previously encountered, instantly turning the rookie sensation into the center of an entirely new era for women's basketball. Most people assumed that any franchise fortunate enough to land a once-in-a-generation talent like Caitlin Clark would immediately reshape its entire organization around her abilities, doing everything possible to maximize her strengths, shield her from unnecessary pressure, and create a system designed for instant success. Yet what unfolded in front of national audiences week after week appeared to be the complete opposite. Instead of a carefully constructed environment built to unleash a revolutionary player, critics saw what looked like a stunning example of organizational mismanagement, with a traditional coaching structure seemingly struggling to adapt to a talent capable of changing the future of the sport. The problem was never viewed as a simple adjustment period or a temporary obstacle. It increasingly looked like a deep philosophical collision between old-school basketball thinking and a modern superstar whose style demanded freedom, pace, and innovation. Many feared that if the disconnect continued, it could jeopardize one of the most commercially valuable and culturally important careers women's basketball had ever witnessed before it even had the chance to fully take off. Yet the earliest warning signs of the situation did not begin with offensive schemes or coaching decisions. They began with the way the team appeared to respond when its biggest star became the target of intense physical treatment on the court. Transitioning from college basketball to the professional level has always been difficult, but the level of punishment Clark reportedly endured during her rookie season felt unusually relentless, exposing what many believed to be a major weakness in the leadership surrounding the Indiana Fever. Opposing teams were not simply applying tough defense. They appeared determined to send a message through aggressive traps, hard fouls, constant pressure, and highly physical play aimed directly at rattling the league's most talked-about newcomer. Around the WNBA, some veteran players reportedly felt frustrated by the enormous media frenzy that followed Clark into the league, and according to critics, that resentment often showed itself through the punishing style of defense she faced night after night, targeting every drive, every possession, and every opportunity to disrupt her rhythm physically and mentally. Fans watching from around the world expected Indiana to immediately respond by standing firmly behind their franchise centerpiece, establishing a tougher identity, and protecting the player who had suddenly become the most valuable asset not only for the team, but arguably for the entire league itself, in almost any other professional sport. Taking a cheap shot at the face of the franchise would immediately trigger a fierce response from teammates determined to protect their superstar, but many fans were shocked by what they viewed as the strangely passive reaction surrounding Caitlin Clark during some of the most physical moments of her rookie season. Game after game, critics pointed to the apparent lack of urgency from the coaching staff whenever controversial plays or excessive contact occurred, often noticing the head coach standing calmly on the sidelines without emotional confrontations with officials, visible outrage, or strategic adjustments designed to discourage opponents from continuing their aggressive approach. There were highly publicized moments when Clark was knocked hard to the floor after whistles had already blown, yet the bench's reaction appeared unusually restrained, creating an atmosphere that many supporters interpreted as indifference rather than protection. The tension only intensified after games, when press conferences reportedly became increasingly uncomfortable, with leadership frequently delivering broad comments about toughness and adaptation that some fans felt subtly placed responsibility back onto the rookie instead of forcefully defending her against the intense treatment she was receiving. For a player who came from an environment built heavily on trust, confidence, and collective support, that absence of vocal backing reportedly felt deeply discouraging. What began as a physical issue soon evolved into a psychological one, planting the first serious signs of frustration and resentment. Clark was not only dealing with the normal pressures of transitioning into professional basketball, she was also carrying the enormous expectations tied to the league's rapid growth, absorbing the hostility and competitive resentment of established veterans while seemingly searching for stronger support from a sideline that critics believed appeared emotionally detached from what she was enduring. Yet the physical battles represented only a fraction of the larger issue, because an even deeper conflict was developing every time the Indiana Fever stepped onto the court offensively. The real tension emerged from a dramatic clash between two completely different basketball philosophies operating inside the same system. On one side stood Clark, a transformational guard whose entire style was built around speed, creativity, deep transition shooting, and a fast-paced offense that relied heavily on instinct, improvisation, and elite court vision. She was not simply running plays. She was reading defenses in real time, manipulating spacing, and recognizing passing lanes and scoring opportunities that often seemed invisible to everyone else on the floor. Her game thrived in chaos, rhythm, and freedom, allowing her unique basketball intelligence to dictate the flow of the action in ways very few players at any level could replicate. On the opposite side of the philosophical divide stood a head coach committed to a far more traditional style of basketball, one centered around defensive discipline, rigid structure, slower half-court execution, and complete tactical control, creating a system that many observers felt clashed dramatically with the natural instincts of Caitlin Clark. To critics, the situation looked almost absurd, like placing a high-performance Ferrari engine inside a machine built for an entirely different purpose and then wondering why it could not dominate the racetrack. Night after night, viewers watched the Indiana Fever offense stall into predictable and stagnant possessions, with the ball frequently taken out of Clark's hands during the most important stretches of games. Many of the play calls coming from the sidelines appeared designed to limit her creativity rather than unleash it, leading to frustrating possessions where one of the most dynamic offensive players in basketball was reduced to standing in the corner as a decoy while lower efficiency shots were forced elsewhere on the floor. The visible frustration became impossible to ignore, showing itself through body language, raised hands, disappointed reactions, and cold looks toward the bench after broken offensive sequences. Analysts across national sports media openly criticized the coaching approach, arguing that the staff was failing to maximize the greatest offensive talent the organization had ever possessed. Every time Clark attempted to speed up the tempo, attack in transition, or create chaos with her pace, momentum often appeared to be interrupted by timeouts and resets that slowed the game back into deliberate, highly predictable half-court actions. The disconnect between player and system became increasingly obvious, and many believed it was only a matter of time before the silent tension exploded into something far more public. What Clark was experiencing no longer looked like ordinary rookie growing pains. It looked to critics like a systematic attempt to suppress the exact skills that had transformed her into a worldwide basketball phenomenon. Behind closed doors, the situation reportedly became even more volatile. Rumors began emerging from inside the organization, suggesting that film sessions and private meetings had evolved into tense confrontations filled with growing frustration. According to those whispers, Clark, widely respected for her exceptionally high basketball IQ, allegedly reached a point where she stopped quietly accepting the system and began directly challenging the lack of offensive adjustments being made by the coaching staff. Reports described heated exchanges in which she questioned the team's spacing, criticized the predictability of their offensive sets, and expressed frustration with running a slow-paced scheme despite having a roster seemingly better suited for speed and transition basketball. For most rookies, openly confronting professional coaches would be considered almost unthinkable. But many observers believed this situation was fundamentally different because Clark was not viewed as an ordinary first-year player. She had quickly become the face of a rapidly expanding era for women's basketball, carrying enormous commercial attention and league-wide expectations on her shoulders. And according to growing speculation, she understood before anyone else inside the building that the offense simply was not working. According to the growing speculation surrounding the situation, Caitlin Clark fully understood that the problems within the offense were becoming obvious not only to her, but also to fans, analysts, and opposing teams, and reports suggested she allegedly pushed for major adjustments that would prevent her from constantly being trapped by double teams without reliable passing outlets or tactical support. Defenses across the league were pressuring her relentlessly, extending full court coverage almost the entire length of the floor, aggressively blitzing screens, and guarding her from the moment she touched the ball. Yet critics argued that the Indiana Fever coaching staff offered very little strategic relief to counter those schemes. There appeared to be limited off-ball movement to punish defensive traps, not enough screen actions to free her into favorable positions, and far too much responsibility placed directly onto the rookie to solve impossible situations against some of the best defenders in professional basketball completely on her own. For a coaching staff attempting to maintain authority and establish control over the locker room, these alleged challenges and tactical criticisms reportedly became a direct blow to their leadership and pride. Instead of embracing the feedback, modernizing the offense, and collaborating more closely with their generational point guard, rumors suggested the staff interpreted her concerns as an open challenge to their authority, creating a toxic internal battle where ego and control seemed to overshadow the team's ability to maximize winning basketball. As tensions reportedly escalated, many insiders began speculating that leadership felt pressure to make a statement in order to reassert control, leading to one of the most controversial storylines of the season. Fans and analysts were left stunned when Clark's playing time suddenly appeared to shrink during the most important stretches of tightly contested games, often explained publicly through reasons such as foul trouble, fatigue, or defensive matchups. Yet many viewers found those explanations difficult to accept when the team's offense repeatedly struggled late in games while its biggest star sat on the bench during critical fourth-quarter moments. There were highly discussed games where the offense collapsed defensively while Clark, visibly frustrated with a towel draped over her shoulders, remained seated on the sidelines, staring toward the floor with an intensity and competitive anger that television cameras could not hide. To many observers, this no longer looked like ordinary rotation management or strategic coaching decisions. Instead, Insiders increasingly speculated that these benchings were intended as a disciplinary message, an old-school coaching tactic designed to remind the rookie that no player stood above the system, regardless of talent, popularity, or commercial impact. The strategy, however, appeared to backfire dramatically once millions of emotionally invested fans witnessed it unfold in real time. Social media exploded with criticism demanding immediate accountability from the coaching staff, while supporters of Clark openly questioned why the player responsible for selling out arenas, driving television ratings, and generating unprecedented attention for the league was sitting during the most important possessions of games. To critics, the optics were disastrous, creating the impression that personal power struggles and stubborn coaching philosophies were taking priority over both winning and maximizing the experience for fans who had paid premium prices specifically to watch the league's most exciting young superstar perform. The controversy rapidly transformed into a non-stop national debate, with sports media dissecting every substitution, every timeout, every frustrated reaction on the bench, and every visible sign of tension between the franchise centerpiece and the people responsible for leading the team. As the situation reportedly intensified, the growing tension no longer remained limited to the relationship between the coaching staff and Caitlin Clark because it allegedly began spreading throughout the entire Indiana Fever locker room, creating an atmosphere many described as deeply uncomfortable and emotionally exhausting for everyone involved. Rumors suggested that daily life inside the organization became increasingly awkward, with teammates feeling trapped in the middle of a silent divide that forced them to carefully navigate every interaction. Veteran players reportedly found themselves caught in an impossible situation, pulled between a traditional coaching staff demanding strict obedience and a transformational teammate whose understanding of the modern game many believe surpassed the offensive philosophy being implemented around her. Publicly, the tension became almost impossible to hide. During media sessions, whenever reporters questioned players about controversial coaching decisions, offensive struggles, or the increasingly physical treatment Clark faced from opposing teams, answers often sounded cautious, rehearsed, and filled with uncomfortable pauses that revealed far more than the carefully crafted statements themselves. Nobody wanted to openly challenge a coaching staff that controlled minutes, roles, and careers. Yet at the same time, nobody wanted to distance themselves from the player who was dramatically elevating the visibility of the entire franchise and league. Clark's arrival had helped drive unprecedented attention, improved travel conditions like charter flights, expanded financial opportunities, and increased league-wide exposure, meaning many players understood how much their professional landscape had changed because of her presence. Yet the lack of a united public front reportedly deepened the isolation surrounding the rookie superstar, leaving her feeling as though she was fighting an exhausting battle almost entirely on her own inside an organization critics believed was unprepared to handle a talent of her magnitude. According to whispers surrounding the team, Clark allegedly began feeling completely isolated within an environment that was supposed to support and empower her, surrounded by leadership figures who reportedly struggled with the overwhelming spotlight attached to her fame and teammates who may have feared